Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story about a suburban conflict that turns into petty revenge gold. Let's dive into how this saga unfolds and what it teaches us about handling nosy neighbors with a smile. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. Cranky neighbor cutting corners. We moved into a nice house that needed a lot of work, and we don't have a lot of money or free time, so it took us about 2 years before we could start working on the outside. We have a garden and a driveway, which is right next to my neighbor's driveway. The neighbors are a cranky old man and his nosy wife. Judging from their pristine plastic and concrete garden, they hate actual grass, loose leaves, weeds, and decorations of any kind. He's been complaining from the start about our unkept garden/driveway, the new tiles we ordered for said driveway that were neatly stacked against the wall of our house because it looked terrible, and the messy backyard, mostly kids' toys and bikes, which he, by the way, can only see through his bedroom window. His wife's an old nosy bat who loved nothing more than standing on our property, keeping an eye on us through the window, going so far as sitting in my lawn chair. She only stopped when we placed a fence. Now she spies on us through the bathroom window. Recently, cranky old man was complaining about us walking over his driveway, which we only did because his wife said we could. The tiles had only just arrived, and one pallet was placed in such a way that we had to walk around it until we were able to move it a few days later. So we made it a point never to set foot on his precious property, going as far as balancing over the row of bricks separating our driveways and fetching items like a ball that rolled over with a broom. Here's the revenge part. Cranky old man kept backing his car up over the corner of our driveway. We were redoing the tiles, and a loose piece of the tile laying there was cracked the next day. The tiles aren't really sturdy the first few weeks until they balance out, and I, of course, wouldn't want my pretty new tiles to crack, so I decided to put a nice solar lantern exactly on the corner of our driveway, with some nice potted plants and rocks and a garden gnome. He hates it. I watched him from the window, storming out and huffing and puffing. Next time he saw me, he started shouting, "What's this thing? Are you trying to damage my car?" So I said in my most cheerful voice, "It's a solar lantern, sir. Isn't it the cutest?" He turned a bit red. "Why did you place that? It's a lantern, sir, to light the driveway. It's on my property." "No, sir, it's not." "I'm telling you, I don't want it there." "Well, I do, sir. Have a nice day." And I walked back in. He complained to my husband about me trying to reclaim my property by placing stupid decorations. I love watching him struggle with parking because he was so used to cutting the corner. One day, the lantern suddenly disappeared, so it's been replaced by a bright pink one. I just love how he hates it. Camera. Protect your property. Those busybodies with nothing better to do will keep being little jerks and trespassing. And our second story. Sister expected me to deliver her inheritance furniture. I, 56-year-old female, have an entitled older sister, 62-year-old female. She has no friends except her crochet group. She has killed all her relationships with her toxicity except for her daughter. Our father has had to move into care. As his legal decision maker, I have the job of selling his property. Sister came to Dad's and indicated what items she wanted, including trying to claim an item willed to someone by my father. I told her she needed to arrange transport for things. She did nothing. I spoke to my father's solicitor to ask if I could use Dad's funds to pay for transportation. Sister hasn't worked full-time in more than 40 years and always cries poor. I arranged transport of stuff, advised drop-off time, and she told me it needed to be delivered earlier because she had something on. I paid extra for earlier delivery, nearly $400. I've been unsuccessful in selling Dad's furniture, so have given it to people in need where I can. Sister finds out and demands more furniture if I'm giving it away. I told her she would need to organize transport and that I couldn't assist with carrying her furniture due to shoulder injuries. She runs crying and bad-mouthing me to our cousin, so cousin says she and her husband will do the heavy lifting. Cousin, female 74, has a bad back, and husband, male 72, has dementia and has had several falls recently. I lost my tiny mind when I found out and refused to allow this. Now, my cousin's not speaking to me because we should help each other as family. Sister's been no contact with cousin for more than 20 years after accusing her of trying to steal sister's ex-husband. They've only reconnected because of dad going into care. WTF? I feel like I'm in an alternate reality. Update. My sister, who's blocked on all my social media, has gained access to my Facebook posts. I've been using Facebook to brain dump my feelings and anger. So sister has shown them to the cousin, and the cousin told me I'm bitter and that my mother is rolling in her grave because of my Facebook posts. My sister's the reason my father's still alive. He contracted pneumonia for the second time in 5 weeks while in hospital. His advanced health directive, written in his own hand, said he did not want life-saving medication in those circumstances. He's 94. As his legal representative, due to his dementia, I told the doctor I didn't want him to be given antibiotics, and the doctor prescribed them for him because my sister threatened and harassed the medical team. My dad was living independently before he went to hospital. Now he sits in an adult nappy and chokes on pureed food. My father was a wonderful father, and watching this has been indescribably painful. I have many lovely friends, and I've used Facebook to update them and to talk about how awful dementia is. Many people have thanked me for my honesty, and it's meant people have reached out to me for comfort and understanding as they travel the same journey. My sister has used select posts to drive a wedge between myself and my cousin, so now I'm the evil one. If it wasn't so painful, it'd be an amazing farce, worthy of daytime soaps. You're in the middle of a complex family dynamic, and it seems like boundaries are being tested from every angle. It's tough when familial obligations clash with personal limitations and past history. It's clear that you're doing your best in a challenging situation. And our next story. Neighbor was sure I wouldn't mind. I did. He shouldn't have called attention to himself. At the time, several years ago, I lived on a corner lot. There was a neighbor who lived behind me with his driveway facing the other street. He worked in construction and for the most part was friendly but distant, generally no real problems. He did his thing and I did mine. But we didn't really talk much. He had a kid, though, who didn't live there but was over quite frequently. The kid owned a pit bull. But even though it was his dog, the dog lived at the neighbor's house because he had to move around a lot. Mildly annoying because it would frequently get out and run around my yard, but we could just call the neighbor and let him know and he'd come get it. The kid liked to park in my yard along the street, not in his dad's driveway, not along the street in front of his dad's house, but well over the property line on my lawn in the back corner. He also liked to pull out hard, and his excessively heavy for personal driving truck, I think it was a 350, not only wore a huge bare spot on my lawn, but 6-inch deep ruts in my lawn along the street, because when he pulled out, he would frequently drive with one side of tires on my lawn for 50 feet before completely pulling out into the street. After heavy rains, his tires would cause a ton of damage. If he'd parked there only occasionally, I wouldn't have cared. But he was there at least once a week, frequently more, and caused some very visible damage to my yard, so I noticed. And it bugged me to the point that every time he parked there, my attention was grabbed. I don't think he was being malicious, just entirely not thinking or caring about anybody else, figuring that my yard was fair game for parking and it was only grass, so why should he care? I gently brought it up to the neighbor and told him his son's parking on my lawn bothered me. He said he'd talk to him about it. I asked if he could bring in a yard of gravel to fill in the depression where the kid always parked his truck so I wouldn't have a muddy puddle of ugly dirt there. I figured it was just a dumb kid who would at least forget from time to time, so as long as I didn't have the hole, I could live with it. I also asked for some fill dirt to fix the long rut. Neighbor worked in construction and said he had access to these materials, but he just never got around to it. Then one day, a detective from Fugitive Recovery at the Sheriff's Department came knocking on the door. Turns out the kid was wanted for a parole violation and had been avoiding capture for a couple of years. Whatever he'd done was enough for them to be looking for him, but not a full-blown manhunt. Apparently, they hadn't been able to track him down, so they were knocking on all the doors around his dad's house asking everybody if they'd seen him. All I could do was tell what I knew. A guy the neighbor called his kid, but I didn't know his name, was coming to the house frequently, was driving a very large and shiny newer model truck with a couple of distinctive features. He always parked in a specific spot, just looked for the mud and the ruts. The detective gave me his card and asked me to call if I ever saw the truck again. But after that visit, I never saw it come back. Eventually, I looked up the name the detective had provided, and that person was no longer on the fugitive list, and the offender registry indicated that his place of residence was prison. What a loser. A fugitive from the law and calling attention to himself? If he treated your property properly, you would have probably never noticed him. And our last story. How I battled the HOA and won. Our HOA sold the lot designated for our clubhouse to a resident to build their house. Halfway through construction, they realized their mistake and tried to reclaim the property. The resident sued them in court and easily won. Coincidentally, around this time, we'd asked for and received permission to build a small swing set / fort combo in our backyard for my kids. It was easily approved. Fast forward 2 years, and we still had no clubhouse or pool. While reviewing the HOA information for the new year, I noticed that they were raising the charges for our pool maintenance. Looking back at the previous 2 years, I realized they'd been charging me for maintenance of the non-existent pool and clubhouse. Details which were buried in the drudgery of all the information and which I'd never noticed. I attended the next HOA meeting to ask where all the money for the non-existent clubhouse and pool was going. I was ignored. I asked louder, still ignored. When I raised my voice even further, I was thrown out. A month later, I received a letter stating that my swing set had never been approved, along with a $500 fine and an order to remove it within 30 days. I went to the office with my original approval letter for the swing set, only to be told it looked fake and was dismissed. Fortunately, a friend who's an attorney helped me sort it out. He essentially warned them to stop their actions or we would drag them into litigation over every issue indefinitely. Whether it was the front gate not working, the back gate malfunctioning, or disliking the new flowers they planted, we were ready to file a motion. They backed off quickly. I grew to despise those manipulators. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.